Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Be Good Leadership. I am Ronnie Caldwell, once again talking about all things leadership in life, in school, and just trying to be better for other people. Today, I want to talk about building trust, but not burnout. How do we build trust? How do we be the kind of person that the organization can rally around without burning ourselves out? There's so much talk about burnout in work. And as a leader, burning out is something that happens quite readily to people, but also we're working, and I'm talking a lot to educators, people who work in schools, and teachers have some of the highest burnout rates in the world. So how do we balance that? How do we make sure that we're people are trusting us as leaders, but at the same point in time, we're able to continue being consistent in doing our work in a healthy manner? The first thing I want to talk about is the difference between availability and being reliable. And I think people are mistaking the two. In fact, I was speaking to a leader who was saying, "Ronnie, I can't do. My door's always open. People are always coming to me. I can't get any work done. It's just too much. It's just I'm always trying to be there for people. I'm always trying to be available for everyone, and it's just, but I just don't have capacity for it." And she was correct. Actually, when we dug more into it, what was happening and some of the she didn't understand is that while being so available for folks, she was still having some relationship issues. She was still having some trust issues. And what she was mistaking is that she was overwhelming herself, being available for everyone to talk to about every single issue. And I think that we are a talking society, which is good. We connect more, we communicate more, but also I think cell phones and everything else, social media has made us feel like we should talk more about everything, or feel like we should let everybody know our opinions without any wait time. Um, and I think to myself all the time, see, schools and businesses used to run without email and without cell phones. How did we still get any work done? Right? For the majority of human history, we weren't communicating constantly on cell phones, and we weren't sending each other emails all day either. However, society still functioned, and we forget about that. And I think what it's led to is people forgetting being available is not as important as being reliable. Availability is important, but if availability is overwhelming you so much that you're not able to be reliable in the way that you deliver on the things that are most important, you're going to lose trust from your people. If you are constantly checking your email and you're trying to respond to every single email, if you're constantly letting every single person who comes into your office spend as much time as they need to get whatever off their chest, that's going to make an impact on some people, and it's going to be positive for some people. People are going to like that. But what's going to happen is when you're just overly available to everything, they're learning to depend on you instead of solving their own problems. And then what you've also done is you don't want to create dependability. You don't want to make people depend on you. Now, I know if you read 48 Laws of Power and maybe you're like, oh, yeah, I do need to make people depend on me. And it's a law of power. I'm just saying, as a leader, you want to build people's capacity to lead on their own, to solve their own problems, because you'll have a stronger team that way. And you also don't want to get overwhelmed thinking about every other's problem that they have the ability to deal with. Believe me, most people can solve their own problems. But when you're so absorbed in all that and every single message and everything is prioritized, which means nothing is, you become unreliable. You drop some of the things that are most important. And the only way we do that is maintain availability, but with balance. Prioritize beforehand to say, what are the things that I need to deliver on today that have the highest impact for the greatest number of people in my organization and the greatest number of people who I'm leading? The team first. I love the individual, but I can't sacrifice the team to the individual. So when we're looking at reliability, when we're looking at what are the things I need to be reliable on, what are those things that make sure they serve the team as a whole? And be reliable about those things. Don't let those things slip. No one's going to be perfect. I'm not perfect. No one is. But keeping that in your head over and over, how do I maintain responsibility for the team and not sacrifice my reliability to the team because I'm being too available to every single whim and every single opinion and every single circumstance. Not everybody's crisis can be your crisis. The other thing that we have to get better at is the idea of overpromising versus actually follow through on what matters. And this is related to the point before, is we read a book, we hear a podcast, we see something on social media, gets us all excited. We go to a workshop, and then we start to say that we're going to do all these different things, and we start to overpromise. We do this all the time with initiatives. We have 10 different initiatives, and for all those initiatives, that's all stuff that you're supposed to hold people accountable for. You're supposed to have training for. You're supposed to give resources for, and you're overpromising. You're overpromising one, to your staff on what you're actually going to hold them accountable for, and they know that. So that loses you some respect and trust. It starts to feel like you're just giving them busy work because you're doing all these things without providing the resources and everything else. And you start saying you're also overpromising to your constituency, to your students, to parents, to the community to say, we're going to do all these things, when in actuality, there are places that have 10 initiatives every year and accomplish very, very little. End up standing still. And I've talked about this before with the Otis Redding problem, is that I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I just remain the same. You start to overpromise about what we can do as a team, all the things we can accomplish, and what people do as a defense, which makes sense. There's too many things, so I'm just going to go, and we can't keep track of all those things. So what I'm just going to do are do the things that are important to me, and we do that all the time. That happens all the time in schools. It happens in organizations in general. Is that the administration, the leadership is overpromising on so many different levels that each individual teacher just says, well, I don't know what's actually the priority, so I'm just going to do what I do. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And we do want some of that autonomy, but we want autonomy pointed towards the greater mission and the goal. And when that's not clear, usually it's because we're overpromising. We haven't explained fully what our priority is, and we're overpromising. Versus there's so much more power and so much trust built if we can prioritize and follow through. If we can say, and the best way to follow through is to prioritize. So you're going to be much better at following through. You're going to be much better at building trust if you have a few actual priorities that everyone knows about and is clear on, that you can actually follow through with what's needed. You can actually provide the resources. You can actually provide the feedback. You can provide the accountability. You can provide the training. Think about it. If you did it, instead of 10 things, you did 2 this year. Let's say there's 2 things. Let's say, for instance, as a school leader, you said, you know what, we're going to get into everybody's classroom once every 2 weeks and actually follow through on that. That's our big thing this year. We're going to get into everybody's classroom once every 2 weeks and provide a paragraph worth of feedback. Sure. And the other initiative is every single time we have a staff meeting, every full staff meeting will be about a different formative assessment strategy. Those are 2 things you could actually do. Those are 2 things that would have probably a positive impact as a whole on your culture. They would actually increase accountability, and they'd be interesting for teachers because we'd actually be it's actually about teaching. If those were your initiatives, they probably have so much impact on so many other things without you focusing on them that you'd be shocked. And there are 2 things that basically you could plan your day around. All of a sudden your PD becomes very clear. All of a sudden what resources are needed becomes very clear, right? What you're going to talk about. You could plan out your staff meetings for the year. And then with the walkthroughs, you start learning about what people are actually doing in your classroom. So that's extra information and communication and building of trust, because the frequency with which your teachers actually see you in their classroom builds that trust. You become better at being a leader. Your people know that you're serious about your job as a leader. It's clear, there's less anxiety, and you're more likely to follow through just because you've limited your priorities. And then, of course, there are boundaries. In order to build trust without burning out, to be a relational leader, which is so needed in education. We don't really need more task generating leaders in education. The teachers are very clear on what they need to do. They're very clear on what they need to do. They might need some help in terms of resources or how do I get better or how do I deal with this? But in terms of the task and giving them extra work, it's not necessary at all. Research doesn't support it at all. What we need is more people who understand what they're going through, are interested in trying to help them grow together, build trust, build relationships. In order to do that, people don't want to do it because it's difficult work. Being a relational leader, prioritizing relationships and building growth mutually as a team, it takes energy. And there has to be boundaries. And I think what I call healthy detachment. People don't like the word detachment, especially when it comes to schools or dealing with kids. But I think in any work, whether you're dealing in schools, kids, whatever, there has to be a healthy amount of detachment in that. It is a job. There are things that need to be done. We want to relate well to each other, but there has to be some point where you cut the strings a little bit. And when you're at home, you're at home. When you're doing some of the things, you find those things that actually refill your cup outside of the school day. And as a leader, also having this healthy detachment to give perspective to say, you know what, this is not actually a life and death situation most of the time. Who I am is not just this job. My sources of fulfillment are more than just the workday. Those are so integral and so important to being able to hold a perspective, to be relational with people, to do work well and not burn out. It can't be everything. Actually, we were never meant for jobs that were everything. Now that's good for companies and it's good for you to feel that, you should spend all of your passion, all your waking spirit in work. And maybe I'm saying something that seems a little bit paradoxical, or people are just like, no, 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 no. A teacher needs to give everything they have to the classroom. A teacher needs to come in consistently to do good work, plan lessons, respond to the students. The students need to do a whole bunch of work as well. Parents need to do the work at home for the students. A leader needs to come in and support the teachers, yes. And then when it's time to go home, it's time to go home. The teacher needs to be able to put in perspective. In some way, the teacher, the leader, everybody needs to be able to be also their best selves and have something left over for their families, for their friends, for their hobbies. And those people who are able to do that, to have a healthy amount of detachment, to say that certain things matter a whole lot and certain things don't. We all have jobs where we're like, you know what? This is what we're doing right now at this job, but it's not life or death. And why do we know it? If you've been in education or any kind of business for long enough, initiatives come in cycles. This is the important thing right now. And then someone's going to tell us, actually, in a few years, we're going to try this other thing. Sadly, we oftentimes throw the baby out with the bathwater. It would be lovely to mix and mesh and learn from our experience. But you have to put those things into perspective, because if they're not in perspective and you can't have that happy detachment from a little bit of what is going on, you're going to burn out. And so you have to build that up. I've done that through meditation, through journaling, reading. Reading history is great for your perspective in terms of how many things have come, gone, major events have happened, and oftentimes people don't even think about them anymore. But you have to have that. And I think this probably is the one part where I might lose people, because they're like, no, 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 no. Everything is supremely important. A little bit. Some things are more important than others. And in each person's life, as a leader, as a teacher, in any organization you're in, you've got to put those things into perspective. And what I would say is that what's more important than almost anything are the relationships that you build, the relationships you maintain, and how you navigate those. Put those into perspective. Have some happy detachment. Be reliable. Follow through. Prioritize. You're going to build trust, and you'll be much less likely to burn out. As always, the advice is free. You don't have to take it, but be good.